It's 11:28 p.m., and you're on 97.4 FM. My name is Garrett Stone, and I'm still here in a dark room 6 floors up in downtown Columbus, Ohio, with the river just a shadow strip and the bridges cold and empty. The air in the studio smells like dust and warm plastic, and the only light is a weak glow from 2 emergency LEDs I traded for a bag of batteries and a tin of coffee. Outside, it's about 54 degrees, a thin wind pushing along Broad Street, and you can hear it whine around the corners when the gusts slide between the dead buildings. The city has a new sound now, a sort of swallowed silence that makes every distant noise carry twice as far. When a door shuts 3 blocks away, it snaps like a rifle shot. When someone drags a cart, the wheels screech and echo off the glass that didn't shatter. There are no sirens anymore, no traffic hum, no TV glow in the windows. If you step to the east window and look hard, you can make out the water tower on the hill and the dead red lights on top of the Huntington building, and you feel like you're staring into a photograph that someone forgot to finish. The clock on the wall stopped the night everything went black. Hands jammed at 9:17, but I keep time by a wind-up watch I took off a pawn shop display after the owner taped a note on the door saying, "Take what you need," and vanished. I turn the crown at dawn and at dusk, like it's a ritual, and the tick is the most honest sound left in here. Pretend you've just connected to this frequency. What do you tell the world in 15 seconds? What's the last thing you saw? Smoke? Silence? Soldiers? Comment your report like we're logging every broadcast. The transmitter we're using is the old standby rig from the storage room, the one they told me never to touch unless the world ended. It runs off a quiet diesel Jenny I nurse like a sick dog. We've got 4 jerry cans left in a 5-gallon pail that's half water because someone stored it wrong. I siphon off what I can and let the rest settle in a clear jug until the muck drops. The Jenny hates cold starts, so I wrapped it in a moving blanket and a thermal jacket, and I warm the fuel line with a heating pad I power for 10 minutes from a pedal crank we made out of a busted spin bike. The bike throws a few watts into a marine battery bank we dragged up 2 flights 1 step at a time. When I say we, I mean me and whoever is around that day. Yesterday, it was nobody. The day before, it was a line cook from a closed diner who helped me carry a box of fuses and then left a jar of pickled beets on the console like a tip. The backup power isn't much, but it keeps the board alive and the transmitter steady. On good nights, I can push out 20 miles. On bad nights, the signal stutters and folds back on itself like a tired bird, and I get my own voice reflected a second later, thinner, as if someone else is repeating me from the far side of town. This is not a show. I'm not doing news in the way we used to do news, with sponsor breaks and music beds and cheerful bumper tags that tell you we're the sound of the city. I'm talking because this is the last thing that still feels like a job that matters, and because voices feel like heat now. I know you can hear me, because this afternoon, I stood on the roof and saw a strip of foil wave from an office window near the State House. 3 short flashes, then 1 long, then 2 short, the pattern we said we'd use if the broadcast was coming through. The person never showed themselves, but the foil talked for them, and that was enough to justify burning a cup of diesel tonight. What happened to us started with small stutters that everyone brushed off. The way you ignore a blinking check engine light when you're late for work, and the car still turns over. The streetlights on high went dark 1 block at a time on a Thursday, then flickered back, and the power company released a pretty map with green lines and a short note that said, "Routine switching." 2 days later, the airport boards hung on 1 flight for an hour, Cleveland to Charlotte, and when I asked a friend who worked ground crew, he shrugged and said the new software takes a minute to catch up. That same afternoon, the water plant on the Scioto posted a notice about pressure fluctuations and to let your tap run if it spits. There were stories on the morning shows about solar activity, bright pictures of the sun with captions about a minor geomagnetic event. Nothing big, nothing to worry about. Just maybe keep an eye out for the northern lights if you're up late. We were in shirt sleeves and ball caps that weekend. People at patios raising glasses and laughing about how the forecast guy was wrong again, and the storm blew north. Then Monday morning, the card readers at the parking garages wouldn't work, so attendants lifted the arms by hand and waved everyone through, joking about free parking day. At 8:43 a.m., a freight train stopped dead on the bridge near Green Lawn and sat there. No horn, no crew visible, a line of tanker cars like beads on a string. At 9:17, which I only know because of this broken studio clock, every screen in the building died at once and the board went quiet, and a smell like a burnt penny lifted off the equipment and hung around my throat. We thought it was a local outage, a downed line, a trip at the substation. We called the utility number and got a fast busy that didn't sound like any busy you've ever heard. We switched to cell phones and watched the little icons spin and then give up. Someone said, "Try the landline," and we laughed like it was a joke. But the old desk phone had a dial tone, and then it didn't. Down on the street, cars eased to curbs and stopped where they were, and drivers climbed out with their hands up like they could surrender to the air and make it start again. The hours after that, where confusion turned to heat, turned to panic. Fire alarms chirped everywhere because their brains didn't know what to do. And then some buildings actually caught fire when little office UPS bricks boiled and coughed. Elevators froze between floors. A bus rolled to a stop at Long and Third, and the driver stood on the step and told his passengers, "That's all I've got." And they got off and started walking without asking where they were going. The grocery store tried to stay open for a while, but the registers were dead, and the manager shouted that people could take what they could carry if they promised to leave the expensive wine. The promise did not hold. By nightfall, the first windows broke, not because of looters in ski masks like a movie, but because people didn't know how else to open doors locked by systems nobody could talk to anymore. I saw a woman in scrubs crying while she tried to get a hand truck through a cracked sliding door at the pharmacy, and a man in a suit wincing as he used his shoe to push glass aside so she wouldn't cut her legs. On the second night, the sky to the south glowed dull orange for hours, an electrical yard or a warehouse or both, and ash fell like gray rain on the river. I keep replaying that first week because there's this need to peg it on a single nail. A solar storm that was bigger than they said. An electromagnetic pulse no one warned us about. A cascade failure spread by software that connected everything to everything and gave us speed without brakes. A sabotage run so clean and quiet, we'll never know the names of the hands that did it. I've heard all those theories spilled in whispers on stairwells and passed on scraps of paper because people don't trust their voices to stay private anymore. I had a neighbor who used to be a lineman, retired 2 years ago with bad knees, who told me in the glow of a candle that we built a web and then forgot the spider could be hungry. He said the grid was always a balancing act, and that new control systems made it smart, but also made it a single mind. And single minds can crack. He said one wrong frequency poked through the right conduit can make machines argue with each other until they both agree to stop. Another friend, a quiet woman who worked nights at a small data center off Morse Road, told me with her hands shaking that for a week before the blackout, their alarms kept pinging strange traffic that looked like noise, and when they tried to block it, the noise changed shape like it knew the walls by touch. She said the last thing their screen showed was a flood of commands that weren't commands, just malformed packets that felt like static, but made the servers lock. She didn't say cyber attack. She didn't have to. She had the look of someone who just saw a dog speak. What I can tell you for sure is what failed. Power failed first. Not the way it does in a thunderstorm where your lights blink and the neighbor's porch stays lit and you grumble and light a candle and wait for a truck. This was a whole body drop. The big coal plant that fed us went to safe mode, and then safe mode failed because the computers that do the handoff couldn't talk to each other. Natural gas plants had gas, but no control logic. Wind kept spinning for a while, and then the control cabinets gave up because the grid wasn't there to catch the load. Hospital generators kicked in for hours and ran until fuel lines choked on debris because nobody had filters and nobody had deliveries. Water plants lost intake pumps, so the river stopped climbing the hill. And even when they got a small pump going with a tractor engine, the treatment side couldn't keep up because the chemical feeders were smart too. The pressurization towers bled down and hissed air and then spit mud. There were still pools of clean water if you knew where to break in, but the pipes under the streets groaned like they were dying whales. Phones went quiet in a way that felt wrong, like an ear blocked by water. The internet. If you want to know when you lived more online than you thought, it's when you watch a city try to remember how to be a town without it. Food didn't vanish overnight, but the system that restocks it did. Trucks didn't roll. Fuel didn't pump. The card readers at the docks didn't scan, and every driver who was still around wanted cash. But nobody had cash, because for years we bought coffee by tapping a glass screen. That's the punchline, I guess. The future was smooth until it wasn't, and then it cut. If you're listening right now and you can use a pencil, write down a few things in big letters. Water first. Find containers and fill them while you can, even if the water looks discolored at the tap. Let it settle. Boil it. If you can't boil, learn to build a slow sand filter. 2 5-gallon buckets, 1 full of clean sand and pebbles. A cloth or coffee filter at the bottom hole to catch the grit. Drip into the second bucket. Then a dose of plain bleach if you have it. 8 drops per gallon. Double it if the water is cloudy. Wait 30 minutes. If you have iodine tablets, read the bottle twice before you use them. If someone older on your block knows how to fix a hand pump, stand next to them and take notes. Food next. Anything that doesn't need power to be safe. Rice, beans you can soak, oats, canned fish, canned tomatoes that you can eat cold if you need to. Don't turn your nose up at things you used to ignore. A jar of peanut butter is a miracle now. If you still have a freezer and it's full of meat and the temperature is falling, call your building together and cook it all at once on a grill and divide it by head count. Don't argue about seasoning. Just eat and salt it heavy. Fire is a tool, but also a beacon. Use it early in the evening and smother it by full dark. Light is a promise to the wrong kind of visitor. Keep your group small enough to feed but big enough to hold a door. Pick someone to wake every 2 hours and listen to the stairwell. If you're alone, stack chairs inside your door, not outside. It's the sound that matters, the warning, not the barrier. If you can find a cheap analog radio, anything with a hand crank or a place for AA batteries, keep it close and tune between 96 and 104 on the FM and sweep AM at night. Signals carry farther after sunset. If you have old road atlases, hold on to them. If you only have Google printouts, copy them onto paper you can fold in your pocket. Do not waste batteries on bright LED tubes that make you feel like you fixed the world. Use dim light and rest your eyes. If you have medicines that someone else needs more than you, trade for something real. a skill, or a promise backed by a person you can find again. If there is a child near you, keep their hands busy. Kids can shell beans and count matches and keep watch with a whistle. They need jobs as much as food. Some of you asked me in notes, slid under the station door, why I keep talking like this when nobody is paying me and nobody can rate my show and nobody is buying ad time between blocks. I talk because I don't want to forget how to be a person who talks. I talk because I see small things that feel like sparks. A retired teacher on Rich Street taught a dozen people how to make a rocket stove from 2 metal cans and a pair of tin snips. And now you can walk down an alley in late afternoon and spot the little blue tongues of flame through holes punched with a screwdriver. An old man who ran a ham radio club out of his basement started a daily swap at noon with a handbell and a chalkboard, and he stands there in a wool coat taking notes with a carpenter's pencil while people hold up what they brought. Plumbing fittings, a bag of nails, a sealed jar of multivitamins, and call out what they want. In a church lot on Oak Street, someone hoisted a small windmill on a pipe and wired it to a battery cart and a car alternator, and now 2 blocks charge flashlights by turn, 4 minutes each, with a line that wraps the corner and nobody cutting because they all know they'll be back tomorrow. I watched 2 neighbors who never spoke in the old world lash a ladder between 2 windows with washing line so they could pass pans and news without going out. That's what sticks. The way we learn slow, and then all at once. The way the old tools and old ways crawl out of closets and books and get hands on them again. I know the mind games this plays. The first week, my hands shook because I kept expecting the lights to kick back on and the coffee maker to beep and my phone to light with red dots. And when none of it happened, I felt a wave of anger that had nowhere to go. Then there's the middle part, the gray stretch where your body does the work and your mind yells that this is not your life. You're supposed to be in traffic or at a desk or in a line for a game. And this isn't a movie because the sad parts don't cut away. They just keep going. After that, there is a sort of dull peace that you should treat with care. It's not giving up. It's your brain trying to save fuel. In that place, it's easy to stop talking to people and sit by a window and drift. Don't let that go on too long. Say someone's name out loud once a day. Tell a story you remember from before, even if you have to tell it to yourself while you peel potatoes. Write 3 lines on a scrap of paper about what you did that day and what you ate and something you saw. It will keep you placed in time. If you have someone you love near you, touch their shoulder when you pass. If you lost someone, say their name in the morning. If you feel yourself slipping into the bad place, pull a task back to the front of your mind. Clear a shelf, coil a rope, sort screws by size. The simple jobs pull you back. I said I wouldn't get into abstracts, so here's the hard part. The silence from above has weight now. The last clear thing I heard on any official channel was a stiff voice on 121.5 calling for any aircraft still aloft to divert to landing fields with visual signals. They said control towers were cold and to follow flare codes like it was 1933. After that, a short burst from a state office saying curfew at dusk until dawn for public safety. Then nothing. One of the last TV vans in town tried to run a portable dish from a generator and got a sat link for a few minutes, just enough to pull a crawl that said, "National emergency, remain calm, await instructions," and then the dish stopped tracking and the van sat there like a whale on a sandbar. I don't know if we're alone, or if everyone is talking to everyone, and it just can't reach us. I don't know if someone is rebuilding in a ring around us, or if the ring is all there is. I do know that the longer the quiet lasts, the more people in uniform take off their patches and go home and become neighbors again. and that might be good or bad depending on the day. I saw one checkpoint on 3rd Avenue where a group of guards stacked their rifles on the hood of a truck and drove off with families in the back instead of standing their post. I saw another where a single officer kept a dozen people from stripping a clinic by standing in the doorway with no gun, and a voice that made people remember. There's a rumor that up north near Delaware, they got a small substation, breathing again, with a tractor, PTO, and some switchgear pulled from a museum, and that a grid island is alive from one township line to the next, just enough to run a water tower and a clinic fridge and a street light in front of a school. I want to believe it. I want to believe we can build small and prove the big later. My own small proof is this. My meter needle still moves when I talk. The signal meter climbs when I lean into the mic and tell you about the wind brushing the cracked posters in the hallway and the smell of dust when I pull a record sleeve that nobody will ever spin again. If you can hear me on the edge of the dial in a kitchen that smells like beans and smoke, or in a car you parked nose first into a brick wall to hide the grill, or in a basement with a mattress against the window, know that I'm in a room like that too, just with a bit more equipment and a few more wires, and a promise to keep talking until the tank runs dry. If you need a short plan for the morning, here it is. Wake with the light. Drink a cup of water before you eat. Air your blankets for a few minutes while the sun is gentle. Check your shoes for nails and glass. Walk your block with someone and note the doors that are open and the ones that aren't. Knock soft on the ones that haven't opened in 2 days and say a name through the wood. Trade something you can spare for something you can't. Tape a note at street level that says radio 97.4 at 11 p.m. And if you have a pencil, draw the short long short pattern under it so people know the signal is real. If you can do one solid thing for someone you don't know, do it before noon. It steadies your head. If you have a skill, teach it to one other person, even if it's as simple as tying a knot that won't slip or checking the color of a flame. If you have nothing, you still have hands and eyes and a back. Offer them. I'm going to shut down in a few minutes so I can let the diesel cool and change the inline filter I made out of a cut hose and a coffee filter clamped with a zip tie. I'll be back on at dawn for a short check-in if the batteries hold a charge through the night, just before the sun tops the parking garage and warms the east windows. After that, plan for the same time tomorrow, 11:30 p.m. Give or take, if the river wind doesn't blow the little flag on the antenna down again. If you're keeping a watch on your block, try to line up the end of your shift with that minute. It helps to hand off in the company of another voice. If you have information about working pumps, free clinics, safe streets, or known dangers that aren't rumors, write them down and be at the base of the station stairs at noon. I'll be there with the bell and the chalkboard if nobody stops me. If you're scared, that means you're paying attention. If you're angry, that means you remember what it was like. If you're tired, that means you're doing the work. There is a way through this, not because I have some hidden map, but because I've seen the smallest things add up to a kind of light that doesn't need wires. Hold on to your people. Keep your hands clean when you can, and your knife clean always. Eat something warm if you have the fuel, and if you don't, eat something and then tell yourself out loud what you're going to do at first light. We are alive tonight, and that is not nothing. This is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. If you're marking on a wall, write back before sunrise and draw 3 short lines, 1 long, 2 short. If you hear a high hiss in my signal for the next 30 seconds, it's just me stepping down the power while I set the choke. I'll be listening when the light comes. Stay together. Drink water. Don't waste your matches. I'll talk to you in the morning. It's 6:42 a.m. now, and this is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM, still running off the Jenny that hates me but somehow keeps coughing itself awake when I ask. The air in the studio is sharp this morning, the kind of cold that makes your knuckles ache when you touch metal. The wind carried a thin frost across the glass, and for a second, the city looked like it was painted in chalk. If you're listening from a basement, from a stairwell, or under blankets you layered with winter coats, you should know the temperature dropped to 39 degrees just before dawn. That doesn't sound like much until you're trying to sleep without steady heat. I lit a small fire in a metal trash can near the west window last night and kept it going just long enough to take the edge off. Burned 3 copies of yesterday's paper, the kind that printed on generators until they couldn't anymore. The headline on one of them still said, "Crews working to restore service." I think about the person who typed that, probably knowing it was a lie but needing to give someone out there a thread of comfort. The lie doesn't matter now. The warmth did. The city outside feels slower today, like the blackout has settled into everyone's bones. On the second night, you could still hear people yelling, some angry, some scared. Last night was different. No shouts, no breaking glass, just the sound of feet moving quick, trying not to be noticed. I saw a man with a shopping cart stacked high with canned goods cross Broad Street and vanish into the shadows of the Greyhound station. The wheels screeched, and every time they caught, he stopped dead and looked around like an animal hearing hunters. That's what we are now, I guess. Hunters and prey, depending on the hour and the hunger. If you've made it this far, you already know how different the world feels without light. I never thought about how much safety came from a simple glow on a pole, a red hand at a crosswalk, a porch bulb over a door. Without it, every corner is deep, and every shadow has weight. I caught myself standing at the window last night, staring at the black wedge where the courthouse used to glow, and I realized how much I depended on the city's light to trick me into thinking I wasn't alone. Now, the trick is gone, and the dark tells the truth. The rumors are still circling, moving faster than facts. Some swear it was a solar storm. Others say it was a cyber strike, a silent war nobody wanted to admit had started. I keep hearing whispers that it was planned, that someone flipped a switch to see how fast we'd eat each other. I don't know. What I do know is that every day without power makes it harder to fix. Transformers that sit dead this long don't like waking up. Gas pipelines without control pressure leak and choke. People in uniforms are still out there, but they're fewer, and I see more of them with backpacks than rifles now. What's left is us, and us means neighbors, whether we wanted them or not. Yesterday, I traded 2 cans of beans for a small crank flashlight from a kid who used to work at the bike shop on Parsons. He said his boss didn't make it through the first week. Heart gave out while trying to haul a generator up the back stairs. The kid said it plain, like it was just another fact to log. He didn't flinch when he said it. Didn't look away. That's the part that scares me. How fast we're learning to talk like this. Like death is just another piece of weather. If you're listening, do something for yourself right now. Sit up. Drink water if you've got it. Stretch your arms until they shake. Then let them fall. Say the day out loud. It's Wednesday. It matters to keep track, even if no calendar agrees with you anymore. Mark it on a wall, or scratch it into wood, because the days blur if you let them, and when they blur, you forget who you are. I'll keep this short so I don't waste the diesel. I'll be back tonight, same time, 11:30, if the rig still holds. If you hear a hiss in the signal, it's just the line bleeding off when I power down. If you're awake now, use the daylight. Collect water before it stops running completely. Check roofs and gutters for ways to catch the next rain. Search closets for wool and canvas. Food runs out faster than you think, but cold kills quicker. Remember that. This is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. Stay awake, stay warm, don't forget the day. It's 10:15 p.m. now, and this is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. I'm back at the mic with the generator humming low like a tired dog in the corner. The air outside tonight is damp, thick, like it wants to crawl into your lungs and settle there. It rained earlier, not the heavy kind that washes streets, but a fine mist that coated everything in a skin of water. The buildings shine under it, even without lights, like black teeth catching moonlight. The river smells stronger after rain, earthy and sour, and from up here I can hear it moving, louder than it used to be, as if the absence of cars has made it braver. I spent most of the day walking the edges of downtown. The city looks like it's holding its breath, waiting for someone to decide what it's supposed to be now. Doors are wedged open with bricks, curtains are ripped down and nailed over broken windows, and scraps of cardboard hang with words scribbled in fat markers. Water here, trade food only, keep out. The spray paint tags that used to be about crews and corners now just say dates, September 12th, September 13th, 9/14th. I think people are marking the days they gave up hope of anyone coming back for them. The smell of rot follows you street by street, not heavy yet, but enough to remind you that cold nights won't stop what's already begun in the warm corners of empty apartments. Around noon, I crossed over to the short north and saw a crowd standing in a half circle outside an old hardware store. At first, I thought it was a raid, people tearing the place apart, but they were quiet. An older man in a hunting jacket had set up a workbench in the doorway, and he was showing anyone who would listen how to take apart a camp stove and clean the jet. He spoke slow, with hands blackened by grease, and when he struck a match and lit the flame, the crowd sighed like he'd pulled off a magic trick. For a few minutes, nobody moved. They just stared at the small blue flame, like it was a piece of the old world caught in a jar. Then they clapped, the kind of clapping you hear at funerals, gentle and short. It's strange how a thing that used to be so boring, fixing a stove, now feels like salvation. But the quiet doesn't last. At dusk, I heard shouting by the old Kroger on High Street. I stayed back, but I could see shapes moving fast, and then the sound of glass breaking. Not the careless kind. This was sharp, deliberate, followed by the slam of a metal door. When I passed later, the front was stripped clean. Shelves pulled out, carts overturned, even the signs on the aisles ripped down. What worried me wasn't the looting. That's old news now. It was the organization. The mess wasn't random. They'd cleared sections in a pattern, moving aisle by aisle. Somebody was leading that. Somebody who knew what was worth taking and what wasn't. That means groups are forming, and not just for survival. Some are planning, and planning, in this kind of silence, can turn dark fast. I don't know if you've felt it yet, but the air changes when the sun goes down. The day feels empty, but night feels hunted. The blackout strips you down to your ears, and you catch every scrape, every cough, every shoe scuff in the dark. I've started carrying a piece of chalk in my pocket and leaving marks on the walls I pass, little arrows or X's that only I know. It's not much, but when I retrace my steps, those marks remind me I've been there before, that I'm not circling endlessly in some dream. If you're moving around at night, try it. Chalk, string, pebbles, whatever you've got. Leave yourself breadcrumbs. The city is too quiet to trust your memory alone. And here's the thing I keep circling back to. The silence from the air. Airports are graveyards. I stood on the overpass near the old freight yard and looked down at a line of jets parked like cattle, paint peeling already, wheels sunk into soft tarmac. No sound overhead, not even the buzz of a single prop plane. We got used to skies being busy, and now they're blank. If there were help coming, you'd hear it before you saw it. But the sky is mute, and that muteness feels like an answer. If you're still holding on to hope that a switch will flip tomorrow and the lights will blink awake, I'm not here to kill that. Hope is a ration, same as beans or water. But ration it. Don't spend it all on a fantasy. Use it for the little things. That your candle lasts till morning. That your neighbor keeps their promise to trade bread for salt. That you'll see the sun tomorrow and not just gray. That kind of hope is fuel. The other kind will eat you alive. I'll keep the rig warm through midnight and then shut it down. If you can, tune in again tomorrow night around the same time. Mark it somewhere, 97.4 FM, 10 p.m., and pass it along to anyone who still has ears and hands to turn a dial. Until then, stay low, stay quiet when the dark presses in, and don't forget that small flames are still flames. This is Garrett Stone. I'll keep talking as long as the Jenny runs. It's just past midnight, and this is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The generator is running rough tonight, coughing every few minutes like it wants to quit, but I'm coaxing it along with whatever fuel mix I can strain through cloth. The studio feels colder than yesterday, even though the thermometer nailed to the wall says it's holding steady at 41. I think it's the kind of cold that doesn't come from air. It's from silence. The kind of silence that grows heavier with every day the world stays dark. Tonight, I walked the south side, down by German Village, where the brick streets used to echo with laughter from patios and the glow of tavern windows. Now the bricks are slick with moss from rain that never dries, and the windows gape black. People there have started walling themselves in, not with boards, but with stacked trash cans, garden gates, and anything heavy enough to drag across a doorway. I passed a row house where someone had scrawled across the door in chalk, "Don't knock unless you bleed." That tells you what kind of trades they're willing to make. Blood for medicine, maybe. Blood for food. The longer the blackout stretches, the stranger the bargains get. Further west, by the old brewery, I stumbled into something I can't shake. A group of maybe 15 standing around a barrel fire, but they weren't warming themselves. They were watching something in the flames. Their faces flickered orange, blank, like masks, and one of them, an older woman with a shawl over her head, was speaking in a voice so low I couldn't hear the words, just the rhythm. It was the rhythm that got me. Slow, steady, like a heartbeat. When she stopped, the group stayed still for almost a full minute before one man leaned in and fed the fire with something long and thin that crackled sharp, like it wasn't just wood. I didn't stay to see more. My gut told me not to. This blackout, it doesn't just kill the grid. It rewires people. Some lean toward survival, building stoves, mending clothes, trading beans. Others lean into shadows and fill the silence with rituals. You have to decide where you'll lean because there's no middle ground anymore. As for the official word, there still isn't any. Not from the state, not from Washington, not from anywhere. If they're talking, it's not reaching us here. I spent an hour tonight spinning the dial on an old hand-crank radio I rigged to the board. Nothing but static, whistles, and the occasional faint foreign tongue that fades before you can pin it. The airwaves used to be crowded. Now it's like wandering a city of ghosts. The closest thing to a signal I caught was a sharp burst on the AM band, just a series of numbers, 197431. Then it was gone. It could have been a test. It could have been someone else out there trying to reach us. Or it could have been nothing at all, the sky playing tricks. If you're listening, here's what you need to do before dawn. Collect rainwater. Even if you don't need it today, you'll need it tomorrow. Anything that can hold liquid, pots, jars, buckets, set them out. Filter later. If you have food, divide it into thirds. One for now, one for lean days, one for trade. If you're alone, look for signs chalked on doors, on sidewalks, on walls. The marks matter. 3 short lines, 1 long, 2 short. That's the pattern we've been using to mean safe to talk. Don't ignore it. And if you find someone, test them. Ask something they can't fake. An old memory, a piece of local news from before the blackout, the name of a street that no longer has signs. Trust is earned slower now. The blackout may be forever. That's the thought circling in my head tonight. Forever is a word we don't like to use, but I can't shake it. We built a life that depended on every wire working, every switch clicking, every unseen current flowing. When that goes, it's not a pause. It's not a timeout. It's the end of that life. And what comes next is the one we carve out with hands, with fire, with whatever scraps we still remember. This is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. If you can hear me, you're not alone, even if it feels like you are. I'll be back tomorrow night, generator willing. Until then, keep your water clean, your fire small, and your heart steady. I'll keep talking. You keep listening. It's 9:37 p.m., and this is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The night has a weight to it now, heavier than it did even a week ago. The kind of weight that settles in your chest and makes you breathe shallow without realizing it. Outside the window, the city is drowned in a darkness so deep it feels like a curtain pulled over everything. The moon is up there somewhere, but the clouds have swallowed it, and the streets look like black veins cut through brick and glass. I leaned out earlier and listened hard, and I heard a single hammer strike echo from blocks away. One sharp ring, then nothing. That's how far sound carries now. Today I walked east, toward the hospital, or what's left of it. The windows are broken out on the lower floors, curtains whipping like loose tongues. The sign out front has been stripped of its letters. Somebody probably melted them down or traded them for food. There's graffiti scrawled across the stone, "No more help." I stood in the parking lot where ambulances used to idle, and the silence there was worse than anything I've felt yet. No machines, no beeping monitors, no voices calling codes, just wind moving trash in circles. I looked through the lobby glass and saw beds lined up, some stripped, some still with blankets crumpled like they'd been left in a rush. There's a smell, too. Not rot, not yet, but stale, like sweat and bleach that never washed out. Hospitals aren't supposed to be empty. Seeing one hollow is like looking at a heart that's forgotten how to beat. On my way back, I passed a small group huddled in the old bus shelter. They had a lantern, one of those pump-up kinds with mantles, and the glow spilled out like gold syrup on the wet pavement. They saw me and froze, hands close to their packs, eyes hard. That's how it is now. No greetings, no waves, just the quick calculation. Are you a danger Or are you someone who might have something worth taking? I nodded and kept moving. That's the language we speak now. Distance as respect. The water lines are just about done. If you still have running taps where you are, don't waste it. Fill every container you own. I've been hearing from people scribbling notes at the trading boards that some are already boiling river water in big pots and skimming the scum off. A woman told me yesterday she dropped charcoal from her fire pit into a jug, poured river water through it, then boiled it. She swears it tastes cleaner. Maybe it's not perfect, but clean enough might be the only thing left. Food is getting stranger. The easy stuff, cans, jars, boxes, that's going fast. Now people are opening bags of flour and finding bugs and shrugging because protein is protein. Someone told me about a man who's been setting snares in the park, catching squirrels and boiling them in cut-down paint cans. He's feeding a whole block that way. A month ago, we would have laughed at that. Now we trade stories like it's wisdom from a book. And there's fear, different now than in the first days. Back then it was loud, panicked, people shouting, breaking into stores, fighting in the streets. Now it's quieter, heavier. It's in the way people avoid eye contact, the way they step into shadows when footsteps approach. The kind of fear that doesn't explode, but seeps and changes you a little each day. I keep thinking about how fragile all of this turned out to be. One switch, one line, one system toppling into another. And here we are. No planes overhead, no hum in the walls, no glow at night. We thought we built something permanent, but it was always glass, strong until it shattered. If you're listening right now, you have to start thinking long. Not hours, not days. Think months. What can you plant, even in a bucket of dirt? What can you trap, dry, or salt? Who around you knows things you don't? How to mend shoes, how to repair cloth, how to keep a fire from smoking. Find them. Learn. Trade. Because waiting for this to fix itself is like waiting for rain in a drought that may never end. I'll keep this transmission short tonight. The generator's fuel line is leaking more than I like, and I need to patch it before I lose the whole tank. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time, if the rig holds together. Remember, 3 short, 1 long, 2 short. That's the pattern. Mark it if you need to. This is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. If you can hear me, you're still part of something. Don't let the dark trick you into thinking otherwise. Stay alive, stay careful, and don't waste the daylight. It's 11:06 p.m., and this is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The air tonight feels colder than the numbers say. It's the kind of cold that sinks into your teeth and makes every breath feel like it's chipping away at you. The wind hasn't stopped since sundown, rattling broken glass against the sidewalks, carrying scraps of paper down the streets like whispers you can't quite catch. I keep hearing it slide against the station windows, and it makes the room feel smaller than it is. I spent the afternoon moving through the west side, near Franklin. It's a neighborhood that always looked rough around the edges, even when the world was humming. Now it looks like it's been swallowed whole. Street after street, with houses sealed in silence. Some doors are wide open, swinging in the wind, like mouths gaping with nothing to say. Others are nailed shut, barricaded from the inside. The strangest are the ones with messages painted across them. Big, black letters, no entry, we're armed, don't try. The writing looks angry, but to me it feels more like begging. Begging people to walk past, begging the world to stay away. On the corner of Town Street, I came across something that's been scratching at my head all evening. A chalkboard, propped up against a broken stop sign with a list written in neat lines. Items on one side, names on the other. Matches, rice, aspirin, water filters, each matched to a person. It wasn't vandalism. It wasn't random. It was a ledger, left out in the open, like a promise or a record. Maybe a trade list. Maybe a memory of who had what before things fell apart. I don't know. But the names, some of them I recognized. People who lived around here. People I haven't seen since the first week. Seeing their names on that board was like hearing a voice in a dark room you thought was empty. People are still holding on, but they're thinning out. I saw fewer today than last week. Some houses are abandoned now that weren't before. Curtains gone. Food smells gone. Just empty. I think some people are leaving the city, heading for the edges, hoping the countryside has answers the concrete doesn't. I can't say they're wrong. Out there, you've got wells, you've got woods, maybe even neighbors who still know how to plant corn and mend fences. Here, we've got brick, steel, and shadows. And shadows don't feed you. The rumors are circling heavier now, that the blackout isn't an accident, that it wasn't a storm or a flare or a freak failure. Some are saying it was a strike, deliberate, invisible, a war we never got told started. Others are saying it was the system itself, too heavy, too tangled, collapsing under its own weight. Nobody knows. Nobody admits they know. And the silence from up high makes every theory louder. If there was someone in charge out there, someone still with the power to speak, you'd think we'd hear it by now. But all we hear is nothing. I found an old shortwave set in the basement of a pawn shop. Spent an hour cranking it, scanning the bands. Static mostly, but twice I caught something faint. A voice, but not in English, not clear enough to place. The second time it was just numbers, read slow and steady, then gone. Numbers in the dark. Someone is still talking somewhere, but the distance between here and there feels like the length of the ocean. If you're listening, take stock tonight. Count what you have. Count again. Then cut the number in half in your mind, because it never lasts as long as you think. Hide what you can't defend. Keep what you can carry close. If you live near water, set traps for fish, even if you don't see any. If you've got seeds, even old ones in a drawer, don't waste them. Dirt and patience are worth more than batteries now. And remember this, people will get hungrier. Not just for food, for control, for comfort, for anything that feels like power. Hunger changes how people look at you. Pay attention to the eyes. You'll know it when you see it. This is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The city is still dark. The night is still heavy. But if you can hear me, that means the line between us is still alive, and that's worth something. I'll be back tomorrow if the Jenny keeps breathing. Until then, watch the shadows, guard your water, and don't let the silence take you. It's 10:42 p.m., and this is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The diesel taste is sharp in the air tonight, leaking faint from the Jenny down the hall, and the hum keeps slipping in and out like it's catching its breath. I've got the studio lights off to save what little power I can, so it's just me and the glow from one lantern and the slow tick of that wind-up watch. The night outside feels thick, heavier than the rain-wet streets. The kind of night where you can hear your own blood in your ears and wonder if someone else can too. I walked north today, past the fairgrounds. The grandstand sits empty, every seat a hollow shadow, banners whipping themselves to shreds. In the horse barns, people have started living among the stalls. I saw smoke rising from a coffee can stove, smelled boiled corn, and heard a baby crying, muffled quick by a mother's hand. They didn't wave me over. They just watched, eyes peering through slats, holding still until I kept moving. That's what we are now. Shapes passing each other, too cautious to greet, too scared to trust, but too human not to notice. On 17th Avenue, I passed a barricade. Cars pushed across the road, doors welded shut with scrap metal, mattresses stacked behind them. Painted across the hoods in black letters, "This block closed." Someone's claiming territory now. Not just hiding, not just surviving, but drawing lines. That should tell you everything you need to know about where this is heading. Neighbors turning to guards, streets turning to borders. Inside those borders, maybe they share food and watch each other's kids. Outside, you're just another problem. I don't know how much longer the stores will hold. I stopped by a corner shop, the kind that used to sell cigarettes and lotto tickets. Shelves stripped bare, but behind the counter, a single jar of hard candy sat untouched. Dust on the lid. No one wanted it bad enough to smash the glass. Not yet. That "not yet" is what haunts me. When bellies sink further, that jar won't be safe, and neither will anything else. The water's changing too. Some taps still cough a little if you beat on the pipes, but what comes out is brown, gritty, tasting of rust. I filled a jug, let it sit all day, and the bottom looks like mud. If you're listening and you've still got filters, use them. If you don't, build one. Cloth, sand, charcoal, gravel. Stack them in a bucket and pour slow. Then boil. Always boil. Don't drink what you don't trust, no matter how thirsty you get. A bad drink will kill you quicker than no drink at all. And I have to say this because it's what I've seen. Desperation changes the rules. It's not just about food or water anymore. It's about fear. Fear makes people dangerous. I saw a man today dragging a shopping cart with nothing in it but a crowbar and a blanket. He wasn't looking for groceries. He was looking for something else. His eyes were hollow, like the blackout had burned out everything but the need to take. If you see eyes like that, step back. Don't argue. Don't reason. Just leave. Still, not all of it is bleak. This morning, a woman stood on her porch boiling water in a stock pot over a fire ring. When it cooled, she set the pot on the curb with a cardboard sign that said, "Drink." No names, no trades, just water. I stood across the street and watched people approach one by one, filling jars, nodding thanks, moving on. For a minute, the street felt almost like a neighborhood again. That minute is why I keep talking into this dead world, because the dark hasn't stolen everything yet. This is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The city is still without light, still without answers, but your breath is proof enough you're alive, and as long as you're alive, there's a chance. Mark this down. I'll be back tomorrow night, generator willing. Guard your doors. Ration your matches. Share when you can, but never blindly. And don't forget the day. It's Thursday, September 11th, at least as far as my watch and my memory can keep track. I'll shut down the signal now, but remember, silence doesn't mean alone. I'll be here again, voice to wire, wire to air. Stay alive, stay steady. It's 11:19 p.m., and this is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The studio walls feel closer tonight, like the dark outside is pressing its weight into the brick. I've turned the lantern down to a faint glow, just enough to see the dials, and even that feels like too much light in a city where most windows are black holes. The generator is running thin, coughing more than it hums, and I've started to count the seconds between its sputters like someone listening to a sick relative's breathing. Every night, it feels more like I'm bargaining with a machine to keep this voice alive. I walked south this morning, past the river, to the warehouses near Green Lawn. It's strange what you find when the shelves are stripped and the lights are gone. In one building, I found rows of vending machines, every glass front smashed out, candy wrappers and soda cans scattered like bones. But in the far corner, one machine still stood intact, untouched. Not because people missed it, but because it was filled with little bottles of hand sanitizer, dust on the caps. A year ago, those bottles were worth their weight in gold. Now they sit there ignored while people claw for beans and bread. The blackout didn't just strip us of power, it rewrote what matters. Near the tracks, I found an old man sitting on a folding chair, bundled in 3 coats, staring at nothing. He had a rope tied around his wrist, and at the other end, a battered cooler. He told me he'd filled it with river water and left it out for people to take. Not for me, he said, for them. When I asked who them was, he just waved toward the empty street. He didn't look at me again, just sat there waiting for people who might never come, waiting because he didn't know what else to do. That's what I see everywhere now, waiting, not living, not moving forward, just waiting in the dark for something that might never return. And yet, there are sparks. I saw 2 kids, couldn't have been older than 12, walking side by side with backpacks stuffed so full the seams were splitting. They carried broom handles sharpened down to points, not weapons that could scare anyone with a gun, but weapons all the same. They were grinning, not because it was fun, but because they had a plan, and the plan made them feel strong. Kids shouldn't have to live like that, but they're already adapting faster than we are. Maybe survival comes easier when you don't have much of the old world to mourn. There are whispers, louder now, that this isn't temporary. People have stopped saying, when it comes back, and started saying, if. That change in a word tells you everything about how the mind bends under the weight of silence. And I'll admit, I feel it too. Every night I sit here, watching the hands of this wind-up watch crawl. I feel the part of me that still waits for a hum in the wires getting smaller. Maybe this is forever. Maybe forever is what we're in now, and forever means building fires out of trash, guarding water like it's gold, and talking into the dark because talking feels like the last thread keeping us human. If you're listening, make a promise tonight. Not a big one, a small one. Promise yourself that tomorrow you'll do one thing to keep moving. Patch a hole, boil extra water. Teach someone what you know, even if it's small, how to tie a knot, how to start a flame, how to clean a cut. These are the things that keep the edges from closing in. The blackout may be forever, but forever doesn't mean the end. It just means this is the world now, and we have to decide how much of ourselves we'll bring into it. This is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. I'll keep talking until the fuel runs out. And if the fuel runs out, I'll find another way. Because silence doesn't win unless we let it. Hold the line tonight. Guard your light. And remember, you're not the only one awake in the dark. It's 11:54 p.m., and this is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The hour feels heavier than most, the kind where the city seems to sag into itself, like the weight of all the dark is pulling every street downward. The studio is colder than yesterday, the kind of cold that makes the skin on your arms prickle even when you're layered up. The diesel in the line smells sharp tonight, sharper than usual, and I keep glancing at the tank in the hall like it might decide to quit out of spite. I spent the afternoon moving slow through downtown, past Broad and High, the spot where the heart of the city used to beat loudest. It's empty now. The bank towers loom like tombstones, every window black. The fountain in the square is dry, crusted with algae, littered with coins that meant wishes once and mean nothing now. A man was kneeling there, scooping them out with his hands, stuffing them into his coat. Maybe he thinks they'll mean something again. Or maybe shiny metal is enough to make a man feel alive. I didn't ask. His eyes had that hollow look I've been seeing more often. The look of someone who's watching the old world play in his head while his body just moves through this new one. Closer to the river, I heard something strange. Singing. Faint, carried on the wind. Not joyful, not loud, but a low hum of voices, together, steady. I followed as far as I dared, and I found them, maybe 20 people, standing in a circle in front of the old courthouse. No candles, no fire, nothing but their voices. I couldn't catch the words, but the sound cut through the cold like a hand on the shoulder. I didn't stay long. Part of me wanted to. But another part, the part that's learned too fast not to trust gatherings in the dark, kept my feet moving. Still, it stays with me. People singing when the lights are gone. That's something. Supplies are thinner. Every shelf I pass looks like ribs under skin. I saw 2 women arguing in an alley over a can of corn. One had it in her hands, the other grabbed her wrist, and for a second it looked like it would spill into something worse. But then they both stopped, breathing hard, and the first woman cracked the can open on the spot. They shared it right there, cold, fingers dipping into yellow mush like it was a feast. Hunger changes everything. Even enemies will eat side by side if the need is bad enough. The blackout is teaching us faster than we can keep up. Power's not coming back. That's the truth I feel settling in my chest, heavier each day. No hum in the lines, no trucks on the highways, no voice on the radio, but mine. If anyone out there still thinks this is a pause, a glitch waiting to reset, listen to me. It isn't. This is it, the forever blackout. We're already living in it. The sooner we learn that, the better our chances of surviving. So tonight, think small. Think survival. Keep water clean, food hidden, fires low. Don't trust the dark streets, and don't trust the silence too much. Make routines. Wake at dawn. Sleep when the sky turns black. And mark each day with something real. Even if it's scratching a line into wood. Even if it's whispering the date to yourself before you close your eyes. Hold on to the days. Without them, time stops being time, and you stop being you. This is Garrett Stone on 97.4 FM. The city is broken, the grid is gone, but voices still carry. If you can hear me, you're not lost in this alone. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, generator willing. Until then, watch the streets, guard your light, and remember the day. Tonight is Friday, September 12th. Don't let it slip away.